some of my favorite Nirvana tracks, for example, are the ones that are not that well known. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah,
his old age acoustic demo. Like,
I don't know if I know that one off the top of my head.
It's all good, but like a lot of like, or like verse chorus.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes I enjoy the B sides more than the A side.
Yeah, and see, when you knew Kurt and you knew all those people around that, a lot of people played experimental noise music. Part of why Kurt and Nirvana was so great was because he was a lonely kid and he sat at home in his room and spent hour after hour after hour playing guitar and writing all those notes. And then also when he moved to Olympia and lived with Tracy, he hung out with all his kids in college. So we all sat around and talked about the meaning of life and talked about art and creativity. And everybody's got their own thing, and then they're playing ideas off each other and talking to each other and like showing like, here's what I did, and then that inspires me to do this, you know. And you know, it's like the whole vibe is just passing around and stuff. At the time, nobody was paying any attention to us, you know, before Seattle blew up. I mean, there was many years of great music here before the rest of the world noticed, and we were pretty isolated up here in the northwest corner of the United States before the internet. You know, it was very isolated. Some bands would tour up here, but most communication was like, if you'd go like say up and down the coast, like a lot of bands toured from Los Angeles up to Seattle and back and forth. And then people would make little fanzines, like make their own magazines, because the real magazine world and the real publicity didn't care about anyone. So it gave us kind of a freedom to like experiment with stuff and try ideas out. And that's what Nirvana came out of, was that whole mindset. And they were in a very creative place at a very creative moment.
Well, Nirvana had crappy musicianship according to like the professionals, but they wrote amazing songs, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, aside from Dave Grohl, like, you know, whenever Kurt Cobain was playing on the guitar, it seemed like anybody could play that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the reasons why it worked. But when you look into Nirvana deeply, you realize that most of the complexity was in the actual lyrics, which was something that nobody could do, like Kurt Cobain. Nobody could write like him, or even write such great songs that were.
I think it was songs. Yeah, I don't think it was just one thing he could sing. But you also had Dave Grohl was the best drummer.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I don't know. I think pop music has always been there. Rock music has always been there, and there's always been this kind of weight and balance where one outdoes the other. And unfortunately, the scale has just been tipped a little too heavy to one side at this point.
Like, I like Nirvana, I like Pink Floyd, I like The Doors, because if you listen to that music, there's a story there. They're talking about their emotions and their feelings, and I feel like today with everything, it's just, look at my car, look at this. It's like, that's it. That's all you hear on the radio.
Yeah.
It's just like, I can't relate to that, you know?
Everything has become an advertising sales pitch, and you know, that's even the way that people approach art now. And for me personally, in my art, it drives me crazy. Because it's like they want you to synopsize what you're doing in 5 seconds. Well, it's like sometimes art takes a while to like get to the point, you know? It's like you should be able to work through it, like spend a few years working on it if it's something that's important to you. And see, that's the beauty of the music that happened here in Seattle in the Northwest, was it wasn't formulaic because we were off the beaten path. So it got like germinated in a way that was like outside of the mainstream. Like in some ways we were rebelling about what the music industry was doing in Los Angeles, because you know, right then that was the big hair spandex metal, and we thought that was all a bunch of crap. And we were all, you know, Nirvana and all that, they might label it grunge now, but it was really punk rock. It's always really been punk rock. Like, we all identified as punk rockers. We were all punk rockers.
What is the punk rock mentality exactly?
The punk rock mentality is make your own fun, make your own creativity, rebellion, and also all the soft, sensitive kids that were getting beat up at home, because a lot of the original punk rockers, like all my friends, either had moms that died when they were young, moms that had like personality disorders, you know, or they were getting beat up at home, or their parents divorced when they were young, and they just were not getting the support.
Nirvana was just kind of rebelling against like
Being a kid, like, you know,
about what being a kid at that point was, which was like
just angry.
Yeah, but the other everybody else was into Guns N' Roses and Poison and classic rock and like TNA, and Nirvana didn't want bling, and they didn't like the kind of like that glam rock era was kind of like it was all about just making money and partying, and there was nothing serious about it. And Nirvana was like, this is all stupid. Like, we're rebelling against that attitude.
The standard of music that is promoted is not a high quality, originally created. It's like about polishing yourself and being like a star, like you're created. And that is not about writing good music. No like life-changing music, I don't think, is ever going to come out of those.
So if Nirvana was around today, like or specifically Kurt, do you think, like, how, obviously there's no way we could know for sure, but how would this Instagram, Facebook culture have affected him and his art? Do you think it would have changed who he was a little bit?
Well, I think it's changed all of us. So yeah, I don't think if you live in the modern world you can help but have it changed. I was talking to a friend a couple of weeks ago, and he said he went back, his family is from East Africa, and he went back to visit, and he said that it was so different there because everyone doesn't have a cell phone, and so people actually talk to each other and communicate in a way that just doesn't happen in the United States right now.
Who was he like as a person? Like, what was he really like?
Well, I mean, he was like a lot of other guys that I knew in the scene here, kind of sensitive, really interested in his art, really super passionate, had a lot of really specific ideas about stuff. Yes!
I'm optimistic. I'm excited. We are still a touring rock band. We get to go around the world, and there are people there who are having fun, who care, and want that experience, want that, that connection. And we hope that, I think the best feeling in the entire world, for myself personally, is like when you have kids come up to you after a show or via the internet and say, like, hey, I picked up a guitar because Ian DeSaw is my favorite guitar player. So I saw him, and now I want to do that. Or I want to be a drummer. Or, hey, I'm a singer. Or, to inspire someone to pick up something that potentially will become an outlet for them for the rest of their lives.
Or to be creative in general.
It's just a beautiful. That's the most important thing for us as a band, is
Wonderful.
To connect.
One time when I ran into him when he was famous, he was telling me about the video that they made for In Bloom and how they got the old film footage left over from the 60s, and they got the same camera that they used to film the Ed Sullivan Show, and they had like all these details, like they were all working in his mind, like he was creating this image, he had this idea about what he wanted to do, and it was really fantastic. That's why I liked him, was because like every time we would hang out, we would sit down and have these big conversations about ideas and different things. Easily amused, I think that was about what I was telling Kurt, because my mom used to have me just take care of myself because she was an artist, so she'd be like, here's a sketch pad and some pencils, just take care of yourself, so I was always like, I've always been easily amused, like I can go anywhere and just sit around and enjoy looking at things, and like that was the conversation, and I think that's where that phrase easily amused came from. And
that's cool.
So it's taken me years to sort of remember and figure that out. But I think all the Nirvana songs are like that. There's like little pieces about like different things that happen. And so a lot of them are about, like, they're all from his journals that were written when he lived in Olympia and he was in the middle of that creative milieu. The beauty of what happened in the Northwest was we were isolated. So, if everyone would have been trying to get a record label in Los Angeles, when they were first starting out, maybe they would have been more homogenous. But here, everybody got to do their own thing because it was a punk rock standard. So we were basing all our stuff off of like punk rock from like 10 years before, like in the 70s. Like what was going on in England, what was going on in New York, what was going on in LA, and so there were always influences in Seattle because of that.
Rock is a different aesthetic, and at times it becomes popular. Usually when there's a rock band that's very good at writing a pop song, which was what Nirvana did, people still want verses and choruses and bridges and hooks. And if rock bands deliver that, they can become popular. If the aesthetic is not going in that direction, then it's going to be more niche. And that's just how popular music has worked for decades and decades. So, that's the funny thing. Nobody really accused Nirvana of selling out. Kurt was very sensitive to that. But they were a great pop band. Guns N' Roses, pop songs. Jane's Addiction, pop songs. Pearl Jam, their hits, the big hits they've had, they're written as pop songs.
I find that pop has a connotation to it, though, in a sense of like those may be pop's like influence with rock and roll, but like they're still playing their instruments, they're still really singing. I feel like when people think of pop music today, it's more like the autotune kind of stuff.
It is. It's more the common kind of pop music that rules the charts, and that the major labels are more interested in promoting and signing is manufactured for the most part. It's made by committee. It's made electronically. That's not to say that there's not real talent involved. This is real music with real talent and real producers who know what the hell they're doing. But it's just a completely different kind of art. It's a different artistic impulse. It's a different style. It's a different genre. It's just, there's no guitars. There's no real drums. It's not so much focused on a live performing unit. It's not focused on bands, and a band is really one small part of the music world. The whole thing with rock is focused on bands and live performers playing real instruments. And that's a niche at this point. It's a big niche, and it's never going to go away as long as people want to play those instruments and scream and yell. But that's, once again, it's a niche.
Hey, thanks for watching. My name is Daniel Sarkisian. I'm an independent filmmaker from Toronto.